So I think Australia should have no reason to be surprised about that. And Australia should also not pretend to know about the Chinese military capabilities. No country should ever imagine imposing a nuclear war on China, because while China will not tell you how many nuclear warheads China has, China will have enough nuclear warheads to annihilate the country which dares to impose a nuclear war on China. This is the strategic certainty and the assurance in our time. The testing, as far as I understand, started on July the 6th, one day before the anniversary of what we call July the 7th incident, marking the Japanese full-scale aggression of China on September the 7th, back in the 1930s. This is the main reason, in my best judgment, of why this testing started on July the 6th, one day before this very important anniversary.
大家好，今天要分享的是，在中国近日进行潜射战略导弹试射后，高志凯先生接受澳媒采访的一段谈话。当主持人以惯常的西方优越感抛出一个个预设陷阱问题时，高志凯先生完成了一次教科书级的外交表达。他用最直白的语言，讲最硬的道理，传递最清晰的信号。整个谈话过程，高志凯先生都表现得非常坦率、自信和从容，回答问题有理、有据、有节。尽管大家都明白中国的战略导弹试射针对的是谁，但高志凯在谈话中仍不失时机地顺手敲打了日本，并在主持人问导弹试射的时间安排是否与澳大利亚和斐济签订防务协议有关，强行给澳大利亚加戏时，没有直接点破，算是给现场主持人留了面子。我们来看看他是怎么说的。
What was the purpose of China firing a nuclear-capable long-range ballistic missile deep into the Pacific Ocean?
Well, China is one of the biggest nuclear powers in the world of today. No one should second guess about China's military capabilities. And for China to launch such a testing fire is very routine and very normal. No country should pretend to be surprised about that.
Well, when you say routine, that's not strictly true, is it? Because the last test was in September 2024, and for this kind of missile prior to that in the 1980s. So that's not routine, is it?
I think it is routine. I think not long ago, China tested a land-based missile, which dropped into the ocean to the east of the French Polynesian. And this time it is more or less in the same line. And it dropped way off the coast from Australia, So I think Australia should have no reason to be surprised about that. And Australia should also not pretend to know about the Chinese military capabilities. In my best judgment, China is completely on the par with the United States in terms of conventional weapons and nuclear weapons. And China and the United States want to maintain peace between these two most consequential countries, and no other country should agitate for war or showdown between themselves and China. We should really promote inevitability of peace in the world of today.
Just to understand what you're saying about China's intentions, we understand China currently has about 600 nuclear warheads. Is it China's intention to build as many nuclear warheads as the United States, to be on par with the United States?
You never know how many nuclear warheads China has, and this is the biggest strategic ambiguity in our times. No one should know about that. Last year, in a very important meeting, I made a point. No country should ever imagine imposing a nuclear war on China, because while China will not tell you how many nuclear warheads China has, China will have enough nuclear warheads to annihilate the country which dares to impose a nuclear war on China. This is the strategic certainty and the assurance in our time. Therefore, get along with China in peace. Don't agitate for war with China, and don't pretend that China is not a mighty military power in the world of today, dedicated for peace, dedicated to defend free trade.
you talked about the fact that Australia shouldn't be surprised by this test, and yet the Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong made it clear that the warning of this test was extremely short, so they were surprised. Do you accept what she says, that a test of this nature with very limited warning is destabilising for the region?
No, not at all. I think China follows international protocol in notifying countries of concern for this testing. And I think Australia should be grateful that China give Australia the courtesy of advance notice about the testing, about the flight details, etc. And I hope China and Australia will really get along with each other, not only as two very large economic trading partners, but also more and more sharing and coordinating on political matters or even geopolitical matters.
Let me ask you about the timing of the test. Australia and Fiji had just signed a new defence alliance, one of a number of treaties signed by Australia designed to push back against China's influence in the Pacific. Was this test timed to coincide with the signing of that agreement?
Personally, absolutely not. The testing, as far as I understand, started on July the 6th, one day before the anniversary of what we call July the 7th incident, marking the Japanese full-scale aggression of China on September the 7th, back in the 1930s. This is the main reason, in my best judgment, of why this testing started on July the 6th, one day before this very important anniversary.
Let me just ask you this, if I may. How much do you think that this test of a nuclear-capable missile landing in the Pacific will set back China's diplomacy in the Pacific?
Absolutely not. I think China and Pacific countries, especially the island countries, get along with each other very well. We respect each other. We deal with each other.
And yet the leaders of the Pacific nations made clear that they objected to China testing a missile of this nature in the Pacific.
Well, in the world of today, in terms of practicality, you may object, but then you need to follow the international rules. The Pacific is not a prohibited region for nuclear testing, and China has absolute legitimacy in doing this kind of testing in the Pacific without violating any international protocol. This is the end of the story, period. And this should not be a hindrance to China-Pacific cooperation. China is a force for international peace. By testing its nuclear capability, China will deter war of all kinds, including nuclear war being imposed on China.
If China was sincere about this being part of China's efforts to bring peace to the world, it would seek to re-engage in international negotiations on nuclear non-proliferation, wouldn't it?
Well, China wants to enter into nuclear renegotiation on the condition that the United States and Russia will agree not to use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon countries, against nuclear-free zones, and not being the first country to use nuclear weapons. On that basis, I think China will be perfectly happy to enter into negotiation of any kind with Russia or the United States or both of them, but not on these conditions. China will not enter into negotiations.
Do you expect that we will see further testing of long-range missiles, including airborne long-range missile testing? Is that what we'll see next?
Well, China has already declared to the world its nuclear launch capabilities can touch any corner in any part of the world within 20 minutes or so. So no country should be surprised if China will do such testing in any corner of the world if China decides to do so. And no country should be an obstacle to China's testing like this. And I hope every country in the world, including Australia, should be very happy to see that China's declared nuclear policy is not to use nuclear weapon against any non-nuclear weapon country, against a nuclear-free zone, and China will never use nuclear weapon the first ahead of any other country against other countries. And China will never allow any nuclear power to impose a nuclear war on China without having that country annihilated by the Chinese nuclear capabilities.
These don't sound like terribly peaceful words, but let me just ask you one question. Does Australia's increasing interoperability, that is working alongside with enabling US forces in Australia, make Australia a target for the Chinese military?
Well, at the time when AUKUS was announced, I said publicly on Australian television that Australia should really treasure the luxury of being a nuclear-free country. So my point is very simple. Treasure the nuclear-free zone, free country status for Australia, and make sure that Australia will not be involved in any nuclear confrontation. And a nuclear-powered submarine will be tantamount to be a nuclear submarine in itself, and is a major step into enriching nuclear uranium, etc., and possessing nuclear technologies to be less and less considered as a nuclear-free country. And I want to urge everyone in Australia to do the right thing. Stay away from being a nuclear power, because you do not know what will be the consequence. Thank you.
Victor Gao, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
高志凯先生的这段谈话堪称中国外交话语风格转型的又一典型案例，不再含蓄委婉，不再回避锋芒，而是用西方听得懂、听得进的方式，把中国的立场和底线讲得清清楚楚、明明白白。高志凯的谈话没有一丝拐弯抹角，面对主持人关于导弹试射例行性的质疑，面对关于核弹头数量的追问，面对主持人关于澳大利亚安全的关切，他始终掌控节奏，占据主动，既清晰传递了中国不首先使用核武器的一贯承诺，也毫不掩饰地表明了中国维护自身安全利益的坚定决心，既展现了中美两个大国之间维持和平的战略清醒，也毫不留情地敲打了那些试图在中美之间煽风点火的第三方势力。这种坦率、直接、硬朗的讲话方式，让西方社会无法误读，无法曲解，无法装聋作哑。这不仅是一次成功的媒体应对，更是中国走向世界舞台中央时越来越自信、越来越成熟的话语姿态的生动写照。